Well, thanks for joining us, and thank you guys for being here. On May 22nd, I directed our Secretary of State, Laura Lee, to initiate a review of the election system security throughout all 67 counties in Florida to ensure Florida's election infrastructure is secure. I have, of course, as you know, been briefed on the FBI by the FBI involving the situation in 2016 with 2 Florida counties, and while the intrusions did not alter the vote tabulations or influence or affect the outcome of the election, we do not want to see any breaches. And so I'm happy to report that Secretary Lee got to work very quickly after my election security directive, and today we have an update on her plan to conduct a review of Florida's election systems and the next steps Florida will take to ensure election integrity is protected. Over the last month, the Department of State has worked diligently to develop a comprehensive, multi-phase plan to review and fortify Florida's election system. The plan will first assess the security of Florida's election systems and identify any vulnerabilities. If vulnerabilities are identified, they will be addressed. To further these efforts, I am redistributing $2.3 million in unexpended funds to supervisors of elections to ensure the safest, most up-to-date modifications are made to our infrastructure. These funds remaining from a $19 million federal election security grant provided to Florida for the 2018 cycle, but were not spent in time for the 2018 cycle. And so the legislature has appropriated $2.8 million for the upcoming fiscal year to continue efforts to enhance cybersecurity for our election systems in preparation for 2020, and I thank them for doing that. So in total, the state is going to have $5.1 million that we will be providing for election cybersecurity as we head towards 2020. An important part of the plan is to work with federal and state enforcement authorities, and I'm happy to report the Department of State is already working on these important partnerships, which will be a critical component of the election security plan. Public faith in our elections is a cornerstone of our democracy, and we'll take every step necessary to preserve the integrity of our infrastructure. If our efforts to identify and address vulnerabilities reveals additional need for resources, I will recommend the appropriate amount of resources be included in my budget recommendations for the 2020 session. So we are working hard. Secretary Lee's working hard, and we are working collaboratively with all our supervisors throughout our 67 counties. And I want to welcome up our Secretary of State to provide you a briefing and an update. Oh,
Thank you, Governor DeSantis, and good afternoon, everyone. I want to commend Governor DeSantis for making election security a top priority of the administration. Governor DeSantis has shown tremendous leadership by initiating a review of Florida's election system and our cybersecurity infrastructure. I also want to thank the President of the Florida State Association of Supervisors of Elections, Tammy Jones, and the Supervisors of Election throughout our state for their partnership in our election security strategy. Since 2017, when elections were designated critical infrastructure, the Department and Supervisors of Elections have made election security our first priority. We have already made critical investments and improvements to our election security, and Florida is now considered a leader in election security and cybersecurity. However, we must remain ever vigilant against constant and evolving threats. As directed by Governor DeSantis, the Florida Department of State will address the security of Florida election systems to identify and address any vulnerabilities in advance of the 2020 presidential elections. To accomplish this, the Department and the Supervisors of Elections will engage in a historic partnership and will work cooperatively together on a joint cybersecurity initiative. The Department and the Supervisors of Elections will conduct a thorough election-specific assessment and evaluate weaknesses in our election system, as well as any potential for human vulnerabilities. Any weaknesses or vulnerabilities that are identified at the state or county level will be addressed prior to the 2020 presidential preference primary. The department will conduct follow-up assessments to ensure that all issues have been addressed and will engage in regular monitoring of the Supervisors of Elections networks throughout the state. I am incredibly grateful to have the support of Florida's Supervisors of Elections as we move forward together as partners in this joint initiative. Their professionalism and commitment to election security is the foundation for our success. Our joint efforts with our local, state, and federal partners will be a model for states in our country. I want to thank the Governor for his leadership and for supporting the redistribution of $2.3 million in unexpended funds to Supervisors of Elections. I also want to thank the Florida Legislature for the $2.8 million that was appropriated for supporting efforts in the coming year to enhance election security. Though our Florida system of elections is made up of 67 individual counties, we are unified in our commitment to election security. The Department of State will ensure that no county stands alone against foreign threats to Florida's elections, and that every Floridian can have confidence in the integrity of our elections and the security of their vote. I'd now like to introduce Tammy Jones, President of the Florida State Association of Supervisors of Elections.
Thank you, Governor DeSantis, for your leadership on this very important issue and for the opportunity to participate in today's announcement. Secretary Lee has been a great partner since she started with your administration, and we have truly enjoyed working with her. On behalf of the leadership with the Florida State Association of Supervisors of Elections, who are here with us today, we have Craig Latimer, Paul Lux, Mark Early, Tommy Hardy, Ron Turner, and Wesley Wilcox. We share along with all 67 supervisors, we share your commitment to protecting our elections. We also greatly appreciate the redistribution of the $2.3 million in unspent funds to support Supervisor of Elections as they seek to make critical investments in election security in their counties. Florida Supervisor of Elections have been laser focused on this issue for the last 3 years. And when it comes to working with our federal partners, we are one of the most engaged states on securing elections infrastructure. We fully support this joint cybersecurity initiative with the Florida Department of State, and we look forward to working with Secretary Lee as we prepare for the 2020 elections. Thank you.
Great. If anyone has questions for me or specifically the plan, Secretary Lee's happy to take some. Yep.
Well, so let's start with the money. So I just want to make sure I understand what we're doing here. You're going to give back to the supervisors the money that the previous administration said that they had to give back by November if they didn't spend it. I'm kind of curious if you looked into this and asked, frankly, well, why did you make them give back the money in the first place if they weren't able to spend it?
No, we didn't. I mean, look, as you know, this has become an issue in the last couple of months in a way that I did not and really nobody appreciated because the public wasn't informed and I was never briefed on it. So we, appreciated the $2.8 million, but we figured, hey, we want to make sure that they have resources. So we're taking the issue seriously, and we want to make sure that we have 67 different elections that are run. And not every county has the same amount of resources, so we want to be there to offer the support so that the elections run smoothly. So I think it was the right decision to make.
A quick follow-up, then. There was, in your LPR, your legislative budget request to the legislature, there was another element of this in which they did not fund the idea of creating your own cybersecurity unit inside the Department of State. They turned down that request. I'm curious whether or not you have made any decisions still, that you're going to ask for that again heading into 2020.
We might. I mean, I want to see, how all this works. But as I've said previously, the issue of cyber is not going away. I mean, we can act like, that this is a one-off deal. And it's not just with elections. We have across all our state agencies and in the private sector are going to have continued stuff. So we'll take a look at it, and we may ask for it again.
Governor DeSantis, one of the reasons why so much of that money was returned, as these counties will attest, is the state attached all sorts of conditions and strings as to how that continuing with that practice. They had to have signed agreements for all kinds of different things and so forth. What kind of conditions will those county supervisors be subject to?
Well, I don't want to say that there is just going to be a blank check, but I think if you look at how we've worked with local communities in a variety of other contexts, I've been very cognizant of not getting mired in endless red tape and bureaucracy. We've done that with hurricane relief, the citrus grants, and so, Secretary Lee, I'm going to empower her to make sure that the funds are used appropriately, but also that they're used efficiently. So that doesn't mean there aren't going to ever be any, but, I don't want to grind this process to a halt because you got to dot, 100 different I's and cross 100 different T's.
What do you think of the way the last administration handled the grant program?
Well, look, it was a different context. 2018, we have no indication that there was any problem in 67 counties. So I think that was a success, and ultimately, that's what we're going for in 2020. In 2016, I don't think even the administration was told, or certainly at least elements were not told that this was an issue in the way that it's now evolved. So I think 2018 was good for Florida. We did not have problems, at least in this sphere, and hopefully we do the same in 2020.
How is that money going to be divvied up? Is it going to go to counties equally, or are we going to see this money go towards the counties that have to return the money?
Yeah, I'll let, if Secretary wants to talk about it. But look, obviously the money is designed to address needs that are there, and so the needs may not necessarily be equal.
Certainly. The $2.3 million that is being redistributed will go back to the counties who were not able to spend it during the time frame that was associated with the last period of the grant. In the coming year, we anticipate the $2.8 million that was appropriated by the legislature to be spent in the areas where we have the most critical needs.
Governor DeSantis, can you, I'm Mary Ellen Foster from Miami Herald, good to see you. So the Mueller report indicated that there was a systemic effort by foreign national to interfere with our election system. Do you think it's your obligation to inform the public if you have any information that going forward through this investigation that there is interference?
You mean on things that have already happened in the past?
Going forward.
So if I am, well, I think it would depend. So, there's different things that we're going to be doing to try to test vulnerabilities. And if we identify vulnerabilities, that is not going to be something that's going to be put out because we'd be telegraphing to our adversaries, hey, this is where Florida's weakest. So those are going to be addressed in ways that are consistent with the law enforcement exceptions and everything. If there's something that has already happened that going public is not going to hinder our efforts to address it, I'm happy to do that. And it's not me that wasn't willing to do with the Russia in 16. That was the FBI that wanted to keep that quiet. So it just depends on how what the posture is and whether doing anything publicly will undermine our efforts to combat whatever's going on. It's no different than what we would do. In the military, you don't broadcast some of this stuff because you're broadcasting it to people who are not who don't have your best interests at heart. So it would depend on the facts and circumstances.
If I could just follow up, how will you decide when the public's entitled to know whether their election systems have been compromised?
Well, it's an issue of if we have vulnerabilities that we identify, we are going to address those in this process that we're doing. To put that out and say, hey, everyone who has designs, here's the problem, that would undercut our efforts to protect the systems. So that's what we're focused on right now, and hopefully we don't identify any glaring vulnerabilities. But if we do, they need to be able to address those in ways that are not going to invite any bad behavior.
Is this enough money to get the job done?
Well, look, if we need more resources, we'll ask for it in the budget coming up next year. So I hope it is. I hope we don't have any vulnerabilities. So we'll just have to wait and see. This is an ongoing process. There's a number of steps that the Secretary is going to go through, and so we'll see how it shakes out.
I want to ask you too, the timing of this would seem to be, a day before President Trump comes to kick off his campaign in this state. You're going to be there along with others. Do you see your future right now? You've been doing better in this state politically your future now going forward as inextricably tied to the president, and that his brand could hurt your brand going forward?
Well, first of all, this has nothing to do with that. I mean, we could have done this on a Friday, which is not as good for getting news out. So we did it now, knowing that I may not be in Tallahassee all day tomorrow. So that's just, it had nothing to do politically. But you know, I would just say in terms of Florida, you know, we've had a lot of issues that we've had to work with the federal government on, and you know, the president has been very supportive of Florida. We've came in and we've gotten really an unprecedented amount of support in terms of the FEMA reimbursements. No other state got a 45-day reimbursement at 100% and then got 90-10 when they didn't even, we haven't even fully hit the level where it's mandatory. It was the president's discretion to do that. He is welcoming our prescription drug bill to bring in cheaper medicines from Canada. And that's something that could be very important for Florida. The Tammy Trail project. So, you know, we're going to do the budget hopefully by the end of this week, and we will have, you know, record funding for Everglades water resources. One of the things I thought we needed to do was raise the Tammy Trail. We put in $40 million, saying we need 60 from the federal government, and guess what? The federal government has done that. We're working on other issues as well. So I think that, you know, because I think the president trusts my judgment on some of this, we've been able to benefit Floridians, and ultimately that's my job now, is to try to focus on what's best for the state. So from where I sit, you know, we've benefited by having a president that understands Florida. But that's different from people's political preferences or whatever they want to do. And, you know, there's going to be, this campaign's going to take forever. It's going to be nonstop. And, you know, for me, you know, I probably won't be that involved. I mean, I'll go to this and if the president needs me, but in terms of like being every single day following this news or that news or the Democrat, I mean, I got a job to do, so I'm going to be focusing on that. But I do really appreciate, you know, what the president's done to help Floridians, particularly the ones that have been in need in Northwest Florida.
Can I ask another election?
We'll take one last question.
Sure.
Not directly on this issue, but on election administration. A bunch of the supervisors are frustrated with your administration, the previous administration, over an issue involving joining a multi-state group that allows you to check the duplicate voter registrations. The speculation is that your administration doesn't want to do it because it would require doing outreach to unregistered voters. I'm just curious if you had any conversations with the people in the Department of State about this effort, about trying to weed out duplicate registrations.
Actually, I'm considering it. I don't have I haven't been fully briefed on all the implications, but that's just pure speculation. I've not said anything one way or another. A lot of states have joined it. I think a majority of the states have joined it now. So we'll take a look at it. And in terms of reaching out to unregistered voters, I mean, that's not necessarily a political thing, but, you know, we have a lot of people who are unregistered in Florida that I think we could get to help us. So it's not even a political thing. So I don't think that would be really a concern. One thing I do want, I mean, if you're on the roll and you die, obviously you need to be removed. If you actually move away from Florida, then you're not going to vote in Florida anymore. The difference, so, you know, Connecticut's a member, but they have one-way traffic out of the state. You know, we have a lot of people are coming into the state, so I just want to make sure that if somebody does leave and comes to Florida, that we identify them. Okay, they are here. This is their permanent resident, and so they may have been registered in the Northeast or wherever, but they're fine here. So I just want to see how that works. But we very well could join. I have the authority to join. I do not have the money to join, and so. But I'd like to hear from some of the supervisors about whether they think that is in our state's interest. So stay tuned on that. I have not made a final decision either way. Thank you, guys.